It is so good to be back on a Tate's Take. I missed you guys last week. How is everybody doing today? Last week, there was a lot going on, a lot with work, and just did not have the time to put out a quality episode. And for me, if I can't put out a quality show, I'm not putting it out because that's not fair to you guys tuning in, because a lot of you are still tuning in. We've got to get that subscriber number up a little bit. We're still at 17. We've been there for a long time, but I'm still getting 20 to 30 views on every YouTube show. So that's what matters to me. But I appreciate you guys still tuning in to the Instagram. A lot of people watch those, which is really cool. I like to see a lot more views on that. It's just a little different how to track who's seeing it. It is cool. We'll show you, how many people engaged with your post and went to your profile, all sorts of things. So excited to be back. Week 11 of the college football season. We are in November. We had a crazy week last week. We had a lot of top 10 teams go down. Miami lost, Georgia Tech lost. It is a chaotic time in the ACC. We got our first college football playoff ranking reveal last Tuesday night, or I guess 2 nights ago on November 4th. And nothing really stood out to me. We're going to get to those in a second. And then we got 3 top 25 games, graphic games I want to get to, and lay the foundation here. We're in November and college football is wrapping up, but this is when it gets really intense and fun. So like and subscribe to the YouTube show. Like I said, if you haven't shared it with somebody that you think maybe would have an interest in watching, share it. Let them know. College basketball season is fresh. We just had it start, and we will be having some of that content, going forward. Right now, I want to keep everybody's focus on college football. College basketball, there's so much fun stuff going on. So this is a college YouTube show, so you'll get that. Just not right now. I want to focus on college football. So we did get the top 25 rankings, and I think for most people, 1 through 5, no surprises there. I mean, I think everybody thought Ohio State would be 1, and I think everybody thought Indiana would be 2. Texas A&M being 3. Those are the 3 undefeated teams at the top that are just deserve it. Like no debate for me that those 3 shouldn't be it. Then we go to Alabama 4, Georgia 5, and then our rounding out our top 10, 6 Ole Miss, 7 BYU, 8 Texas Tech, 9 Oregon. So and then 10 Notre Dame. Sorry. So not too much there that jumps out to me. We did get, a kind of cool taste of what matchups would be if this was our playoff, and it's awesome. Like, here is the first round matchups for the college football playoff if it was based on this. We would have Georgia playing Memphis as the group of 5 team. Memphis is not ranked, but that's who the committee says is the highest ranked team in the group of 5. That'd be one of them. We would have Ole Miss versus Texas. That's awesome. Like, pure football fan in me, that's an awesome game. We'd have BYU versus Notre Dame. That's fun. That game would be out at Brigham Young in Utah. And then we'd have Texas Tech, Oregon. So those are 4 really good games. I think Georgia would kill Memphis, but other than that, I think all those games are really good games. I think Texas would be favored as the 11th seed against Ole Miss. I think Notre Dame would be favored as the 10th seed against BYU. And I think Oregon would be favored as the 9th seed against 8 Texas Tech. So pretty crazy that you look at that and you say 3 of the teams, in my opinion, would potentially be underdogs. So some teams that, are, I guess actually I messed that up a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm doing this live and looking at my rankings. Virginia would be in there, and that would have eliminated Texas from that. So there is a little changes. So Texas wouldn't be in the playoff. They got 2 losses. Right now, it's not that crazy. So when I look at it, I say Ohio State, Indiana, if those 2 win out, they will be in the Big Ten championship. As an Ohio State fan that has seen Michigan beat Ohio State 4 straight years in a row, I am not going to sit here and say that Ohio State's easily going to win out. I do think aside from the Michigan game, all their games are easy. Remainder outside of the Michigan game. Indiana, very easy schedule. If they get through this weekend against Penn State, probably will be 12-0. Let's say hypothetically both those teams are 12-0. They go to Indianapolis. That'd be a great Big Ten championship game. But also we would have potential. It would be the easy number 1 seed who wins that game. Now, if both those teams were undefeated, played in that, how far would you drop the loser? I think they'd still be a bye. They should be. So Texas A&M, SEC, you got 3, 4, 5, 6 in the SEC with Texas A&M, Bama, Georgia, and Ole Miss. So, there's a lot of things that can happen here these last few weeks of the year, and I'm excited because the SEC, there's a heck of a lot to play for because you got teams like Texas, Oklahoma. Could Utah sneak in? Lots of teams that are just kind of on that fringe. And then for me, the group of five, who is the representative? Is it Memphis? Is it South Florida? Is it North Texas? Is it Boise State? Is it UNLV? What team is it? And that's important because you need to know who is the group of five representative. And then ACC. I mean, it's a mess. I think if Virginia gets in, that's a disappointment for the ACC because I don't think Virginia can beat any of the teams that they'd match up with, nor do I think Louisville could. Miami was the best bet, and they've fallen off. Now, if Miami won out, I think there's a scenario where they could find a way in. Georgia Tech, obviously losing, creates a lot of chaos too. So the ACC is a mess, and I don't really know what to expect. But what I do know is this weekend we have a lot of those top 25 teams playing. And, when you look at the slate, the casuals, like my favorite college football media personality, Josh Pate says, would say this is a boring weekend. There's a lot of down games. There's not that flashy matchup. I do think there's a flashy matchup, but the remainder of the games, it's up for debate on what you think. But I look at the slate this weekend. It's going to be a little shorter show today because there are some big games on or teams on bye. And then some of your top teams are in blowout spots. Ohio State goes on the road to play Purdue, projected to win by 29.5. Indiana going to Penn State, 14.5-point favorites. Keep an eye on that one. Penn State showed me something against Ohio State that they could compete in a game like this, and it's at home. Those guys seem to totally be playing for the interim coach. They like him. They're playing hard for him. You never know in a game like that. You got Georgia at Mississippi State. Georgia's a 9.5-point favorite. That one's definitely one that I just think people need to keep an eye on because if you look at what Mississippi State has done, they have been so close this whole year to winning a big game like that. Obviously, unfortunately, they played Texas 2 weeks ago and were up 17 and lost. So I don't know. It's interesting because you look at Mississippi State and you're like, they could have won 2 or 3 of these games, but they haven't. And so they beat Arkansas last week. What do they look like in this game? So the first graphic game that I want to get to today, and when you look at the slate for the week, it's the best game of the week. But also look at this line. First game, we got number 7 BYU going on the road to play number 8 Texas Tech. Guys, what are we missing here? 10.5-point favorites for Texas Tech at home. Texas Tech's a better team. You will not get me debating that. I think Texas Tech is the better team in this game. But 10.5, that jumps out because I look at it and I say, well, okay, well, you look at these teams, they have the same record in terms of, or actually, no, sorry. You look at these teams, and the better record team is a 10.5-point underdog. BYU is 8-0. A lot of people just don't like BYU. It's weird because I don't know. I think they get a lot of hate because their quarterback doesn't have big stats. They don't have guys with all these statistical out like just you put out their stats, you're not blown away. But they're 8-0. They've won games against Utah, Iowa State, Arizona, West Virginia, Colorado in the conference, and I think that's part of their flaw too. Is people don't think they've played the elite top of the conference. But if you look at Texas Tech. I mean, Texas Tech played Kansas State this past weekend, killed them. I was on Kansas State. They blew them out. Very impressive win. They barely beat Arizona State they lost Arizona State a couple weeks ago. Obviously, they beat Utah. So they have a common opponent in Utah, but other than that, not much. Big news for BYU. They do get their running back, LJ Martin, back. 800 yards almost on the ground this season. Baron Morton for Texas Tech, he's back, their quarterback. It's just, first glance, I say, why is that line so big? And I think it's the public doesn't respect BYU and the games they've played and the teams they've beat. So I look at it and I say, I think BYU covers. I do. I think Texas Tech wins the game. I think they're the better team, and I think they're really good at home. I think they have unbelievable defense. David Bailey, most notably, 11 and a half sacks. I just think the talent and the matchup favors Texas Tech, but I don't see a blowout because BYU is a gritty team and they haven't lost. And so until a team loses, I have a hard time not picking them in the points. And you get that 10.5 point line. If this is 9.5 and you tell me, Texas Tech can win by 10 and you wouldn't lose the bet, or you wouldn't win the bet if it was 9.5 for BYU, getting that 10.5, that's a huge number. This is the big game of the week. I wish it was at night. I like night games for the big game of the week, but this is at noon on ABC. And I like Texas Tech to win, but I like BYU to cover. So some other games as well as you go through the college football slate this week. Ranked game. Here we go. Another one. And we got Oregon on the road against Iowa. Here's the graphic. We got Oregon as a 6.5 point favorite. The over-under is currently set at 42.5 points. Weather is expected to be miserable, okay? Iowa is not a place you want to play when there's bad weather. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's cornfields. It is cold. It is windy. And that's what we're getting on Saturday afternoon, 3:30, CBS. Oregon's actually coming off a week where they played that 2 weeks ago. They had a bye last week, but they did play 2 weeks ago. Sloppy win against Wisconsin that, I think if they didn't have that result, I think people would easily be hammering Oregon to win this game. But due to that result, there's a little hesitancy. And I think that's fair given what we saw. So I look at this game and I say, I like the over, okay? Right off the bat, I like the over. 42.5. I look at both these teams. I think Iowa is so much more improved. They're averaging over 30 points a game. Stop me if you've ever heard me say that Iowa or any college football media personality is a good offense. I don't know if I'm going to say they're a good offense, but they're much better than they've been. Mark Gronkowski, their quarterback, he's a lot better. It's crazy. They've been doing that good, but you look at his stats, he hasn't even thrown for 1,000 yards this year. But they've looked a lot better offensively. Now, they haven't played a defense like Oregon is. And so that's where I stop you and say, well, if I just told you guys to bet the over, well, if there's any hesitancy to maybe who Iowa's played, pause on that. But I just think it's low. 42.5. I can see this game easily being 28-21, 28-24, even a scenario 24-23, something like that, 24-21. All those would hit the over. I do like Oregon this week because Dan Lanning has been building this Oregon program to win games like this. And you're part of the Big Ten. You got to go on the road to play Iowa. It's a hard place to play games at, but you're the better team on paper. You're the better team on the field. You got to go out and win this game, and that's why I like Oregon to cover 6.5. I don't like that number. I wish it was a little lower, but I do like that you can get Oregon to win by a touchdown, and it wins your bet. I always am hesitant when it's like 4.5 or 5.5, or 7.5 or 8.5 when the team's the big favorite, just because you're like, well, can they do it? Can they win it and cover that? I don't know, but I like Oregon. I like them coming off a bye. They didn't look good, like I said, against Wisconsin. A lot of weather factors there as well. We're going into an environment here on Saturday where weather is going to be a factor. But when I think about it and I analyze the matchup, I like Oregon to cover and make a statement here that Oregon is still in the running to win the Big Ten and get to Indy, because you never know. If Oregon were to win out, maybe Indiana slips up once or twice, which I don't see happening, or Ohio State loses and maybe Michigan were to drop a game before, Oregon would find a way in to the Big Ten championship. So I do like Oregon in this matchup to cover the 6.5, and I also lean the over in this game. So the last game that is on the docket for our graphic games is a battle in the SEC between number 3 Texas A&M and number 22 Missouri. Texas A&M, I mean, this team, they just keep winning. They're a 6.5 point favorite this week at Missouri. I think if Bo Perbula was the quarterback for Missouri, I think you see this line potentially be 3.5, 2.5 even, honestly, with how Bo Perbula was playing. This is their first game without Bo Perbula as a starting quarterback. They are coming off a bye. I like that, given that this game could be pretty physical. On the reverse side, though, you look at it, and they Texas A&M is also coming off a bye, and they killed LSU in their last game. So I have a hard time picking the spread here. I do. I also I think Texas A&M wins the game. I think they are the second best team in the country besides Ohio State. I think this offense is explosive, but that's going to lead me into saying I think I favor the over in this game, 47 and a half. I think Texas A&M on their own can score 30 plus. And so if you're telling me I would only need 20 points from Missouri, I'm going to take that. Even if you get a 31-17 game covers this spread. So I like the over in this game. Not going to give it out on the show for tomorrow. That's not going to be one of my picks. I won't have one for this game, but I do lean Texas A&M to win the game. If I had to lean aside, I would say them to cover just because what I watch from that team is impressive. And I think they can score. I think they have Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion, Le'Veon Moss as a running back. He's getting healthier. They got obviously the quarterback there, Marcel Reed, that just is really good. I just like this team, and like I said, I really think they're the second best team in the country. I am so excited for that last week of the regular season when Texas gets to play them, just because there could be a lot on the line for Texas in that game, and that's not a team in Texas A&M that I think anybody wants to play. So that's kind of where I lean, I would say, for these three big games this week. Also, some games that, I wish were a little bit better, but unfortunately have been impacted by, coaches being fired and also just teams not performing. We got LSU, Alabama at night. I think after LSU beat Clemson, I think this would have been a shoo-in for a top 25 matchup. Unfortunately, we don't get that. Another matchup that I think preseason, especially after Florida State beat Alabama, that everybody thought would be of note. Florida State Clemson play at 7 o'clock. It's two bad teams and it's two underperforming teams. If Clemson loses this game, they're 3-6. So for a team that was top 5 picked to win the national championship, what a disappointment from Clemson. So, guys, week 11, we're moving on. We're chucking along this college football season, and I'm excited to get into this stretch season of the playoff grind. We have a lot more playoff talk now, and this is the place you want to tune in for all the news you need on college football as we head into the college football playoff rankings beginning of December, conference championships, and then the wonderful playoff heading in the middle to end of December. So tune in next week to another show of a Tate's Take, and I'm going to deliver better picks this week. We had a losing week last week. We haven't had a lot of those, but we did have one. I'll bounce back, and I'll see you guys next week on a Tate's